are both very true today. Hey, what's up, nerds? My name's Chris. We're learning Java at the moment. I was going back and forth on whether or not to go into methods or the way you do things in code, or if we're going to go a little bit more into OOP, which is object-oriented programming. I decided we're going to end up with the OOP so we can learn a little bit about objects and classes. So let's jump into it. So OOP, or object-oriented programming, is the type of language that Java is. There's a couple different types of coding languages out there. Object-oriented programming, basically, just like the name implies, is based around the idea of objects. So everything that you're going to create in these programs are going to be objects. And objects have what we talked about last time, which are variables, or the data, and methods, or the actions they can do. But what's going to define those actions and that data is a class. And a class is just a blueprint or a recipe for whatever object that we're going to be creating. So going back to the last video, we talked about how variables are the ingredients to a recipe and the methods are the actions in the recipe. Today we're going to basically look at how to create an actual recipe and what the result is going to look like, aka a class and an object. So let's get that started. All right, so I have my IntelliJ open here. We're going to create a new project. And just like last time, you're just sticking with the SDK11. And we'll just go ahead and create one from a template for the command line app. We'll call this breakfast sandwich. Okay, once IntelliJ stops loading, you've got your very basic Java app open. So what we ideally want to do here in our main method is basically make sandwich. So we want to have some sort of method that is going to compile our sandwich for us. But in order to do that, we need to make a sandwich object, some sort of reference to what a sandwich is and what it can do. So to do that, you make a class. And to do a class, you want to go into your source, into this main method here. Let's get rid of that so we don't get any errors. Right click it and do new Java class, and we'll call that sandwich. So now you have this new file. It's in the same folder as your original main file, but now it's called sandwich, and we've got a couple keywords here. So to begin with, you have public, which basically says the other files in your app can use it, can look at it. You've got class, which is a keyword to show that this is a class that it can find, and then the name of the class, which is sandwich. So I'm going to fill in a couple variables for this sandwich class, and we'll go over it here in a second. Okay, so I added a couple of variables here. So this is the data, this is the ingredients, literally in this case, for our sandwich. So we've got an integer of slices of bread, how many pieces of bread is this sandwich going to have, a boolean, whether or not it's toasted. We've got a string for the type of eggs, whether or not it's scrambled, over easy, etc. And we've got a boolean for is vegetarian, whether or not we're going to add meat or not to it. So these are all set to private because in general, the classes are the only ones that need to know about these variables. We can make them public and we can have other classes change these variables, but we'll get into that later. Right now, it's just good practice to do a private. So obviously the other thing that we can do is add some actions. So I'm going to make a make sandwich method here that our main class is then going to pull. So let me do that real quick. All right, so here's our code for our method for action. You see I've got public static void make sandwich. Again, the public is so that other classes can see it, unlike private. Static we'll get into later. Void means it's not going to return anything. Nothing's going to come back from this. And the make sandwich is the name. And of course, we've got our parentheses there at the end. So what we're just going to have this one do is, again, shortcut SOUT in IntelliJ with tab makes a print line. So we're just going to say sandwich being made. And that's it. So this is our basic sandwich class. We've got the ingredients and we've got the methods. So now other files, other classes like our main can look at this. So let's go back to our main class. All right, in order to make an object, it's similar to other variables. So right now you've made integers and booleans, strings, things like that. It's very similar. But instead of an int or boolean, we're going to make a sandwich. So you see capital S to follow the class that we made. And then call it anything you want. I'll call it Sammy. And then you're going to assign it to a new, and then do the sandwich class again. And you can see there's parentheses at the end there, and that's what they call a constructor. And we'll get into constructor on our next video, but constructor basically creates the object, and you can create your own constructors, but by default every class has one. And so this is just our default sandwich class. We're not changing anything, it's just building it as is, blank slate. And then we can do Sammy dot make sandwich. So now we've got Sammy.makeSandwich, again with the parentheses at the end to show that it is a method. And when we run it, it's going to make a sandwich object, and then it's going to run that method that we made in the sandwich class. So you've got the sandwich being made here in the terminal that is being called from this sandwich method. So we can make as many classes as we wanted. We could make a sandwich class, we can make a pasta class, we can make a sushi class, and they're all going to have these different objects and variables and methods that they can run. And then our main class here can find them, create new ones, and then make what we're doing. So in our next video, we'll get a little bit more into these kind of methods and these different things you can do with them. The constructors, there's things called getters and setters that we'll get into. But right now, we've got a great base for object-oriented programming, which again is just classes, aka the blueprints or the recipes, and objects, which are the results or the thing that's being created from those recipes. So see you next time.